Hello, welcome back. It's so good to see you. So today we are going to be reading part two of my grandmother's memoir. If you missed the first part, I'll either put a link here or in the description. I'm not sure. It just depends on if I remember. I'll try to, though. Anyway, if you do remember the last time that I read it, we stopped right after my grandmother was born. And I seem to remember that their normal doctor was already on a call. So they had to go with Dr. Henderson, which charged $425 or something like that. I looked it up. I looked the price up in now money. Like, I don't know how, you know what I'm talking about. And their original doctor would have charged $325 for the home delivery, but Dr. Henderson thought he was snooty or something because he charged them $425. Crazy. But anyway, so she was just born, and now we're on to chapter 4, which is titled Our House. So let's just get started. Okay, it says, we were quite poor, as I remember it, in material things. We did not have a fancy house. You must remember that we were just coming out of the Depression in the year of 1937, and times were hard. I bet they were. I cannot even imagine. We lived in a 4-room house. Now that's not 4 bedrooms. It's 4 rooms, which was small for any standards. There was a small kitchen that had to be used for storage. The dining room held the big wood-burning range, which had 4 burners on top, a reservoir on the side, and a warming oven above all of that. We would burn wood to heat the cook stove. I remember that stove so well because of the good food that my mom cooked on it. We also had a large table and chairs in the dining room. We had 1 bedroom and a living room, and that was all there was to our house. So they have 5 kids, 2 adults, 1 bedroom. Crazy. We also had a big barn that is still standing. However, it was always painted white, and now the people who bought my mom and dad's place painted the barn red. It seemed like we were always warm enough, but with that many people in such a small house, I guess we would be warm. Besides the cooking range in the dining room, we had a big round heater that would burn wood and coal in, which was in the living room. The heater would get red hot. Everything was warm and cozy. After supper, we would take all our places around the table to do homework. When the homework was done, we would clean beans. We each had a pile of dry beans that we picked clean of little sticks and stones. We would put the clean beans in separate pans that were held on our laps. Once in a while, my brother Roger would drop a pan of beans on the floor just to see my dad get mad. It made a fearsome noise. The kerosene lamp would be in the middle of the table. I always liked to be the one to blow the lamp out before we went to bed. Can you imagine? This was before they even had electricity or anything like that. Crazy. I know electricity existed, but they didn't have it. We didn't have a bathroom while I lived at home. This was added in later years. We had an outhouse, or outdoor toilet, that we all remember well. The Sears and Roebuck catalog was our toilet paper. We would use a chamber pot in the wintertime. Mom would always put Lysol in the bottom of the pot. She would have to empty the chamber pot into the outhouse each day. Just craziness. My parents also added a bedroom after I left home. I think this was mostly for my younger brother, so he would have a little more space and privacy. And there are pictures. So this is the outhouse, and I think that's just like some windmill thing, and those are paintings of her actual home. There's you can see the house and the barn, and it's done like at different times of the year. I actually have these paintings in my dining room. I love them so much. I look at them every day and think of her. Ugh, don't cry. Okay, so that was chapter 4. Chapter 5 is titled My Dad. We lived in a little house on a 40-acre farm. My dad had worked for his father to buy this farm and build the house. It was about 4 miles from the small town in Minnesota. I'm not going to give names of towns and last names, that kind of thing, because it doesn't matter. I would say that we farmed about 20 acres of it. A part of the 40 acres was taken up for the house and barn. I guess you would call this a vegetable farm. We raised produce of all kinds. We raised tomatoes, cabbage, pickles, potatoes, corn, beans, and a lot of other things. We had the acres that we tilled for vegetables, a big woods, a little woods, a swamp, and then the meadow. We loved this place so much. The meadow had wild strawberries, raspberries, chokecherries, and plums. The strawberries were the sweetest of any you can imagine. The ones they sell in stores now are not even close to these wild ones. You would mash them and put a little milk and sugar on them and just enjoy them. We had a gooseberry bush and a hazelnut bush. Okay, there's pictures here. It says Mom and Daddy's wedding picture. They made such a handsome couple. So those are my great-grandparents. Okay, on our tilled land, we grew corn, tomatoes, pickles, carrots, lettuce, potatoes, beans, and many more things. My dad would take the cabbage, rutabagas, potatoes, beans, and whatever we had and sell it to the people in northern Minnesota. He would take the passenger seat out of the car so there would be more room for the produce. We were always so embarrassed when he got home if we had to go to town or something. He would put a little red chair in place of the seat, just temporarily. Can you imagine? Like, what? I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do, but like, there's no way they would allow that. You know, with like the child safety laws and stuff in cars, like, different times. We also had ground cherries that grew in the garden. They had a little brown husk over the outside, and on the inside they would be bright yellow. They tasted like no other fruit I have ever eaten. Delicious in jams or pies or just picking and eating. We had Blackhawks that turned our tongues black and a thorn apple tree. Oh, we loved the meadow and all its abundant fruits, free for the picking. That sounds amazing. And like, these are things that I've never heard of, like Blackhawks, thorn apple trees, ground cherries. Like, I've never heard of this stuff. In 1946 or 1947, my dad went to South St. Paul for a job at a meatpacking plant. He did not stay there very long. He next worked at a manufacturing company in 1948. They made refrigerators there, and soon he became foreman of the night shift. My dad used to walk to town in the wintertime because a snowplow did not come down our driveway, which was about a quarter of a mile long. It was about 4 miles to town from our house. Mom would give him a pillowcase to carry the groceries home. I remember one time when he had gone to get groceries and he had bought a jar of peanut butter, among other things. This was to make sandwiches for our school lunch for the week. I believe he dropped the pillowcase at some point on his way home. The glass shards were all through the peanut butter, and it could not be used. I know that Mom was wondering what she could use in place of it. She always mixed the peanut butter with a large amount of lard, so it was very filling. Lard. I remember one time my dad brought a crate of apples home. They were so good. I thought how hard it must have been to carry those apples for us. I mean, walking 4 miles with a crate of apples, yikes. His hands were bleeding from scratches. This is the first time that I cried while writing this memoir. My parents must have had such a hard life, but you would never hear them complain. They just went ahead and did whatever was necessary. They were tough. I remember one winter when Daddy got the idea to creosote. I don't know what that word is. Creosote. I don't know what that word is. So he got the idea to do this to every bare board in the house. The smell just permeated everything, including our food and clothing. We took apple butter sandwiches to school, and they tasted like creosote. I wouldn't eat them. I would put them down in the legs of my snow pants. There must have been elastic in the bottom of the legs because the sandwiches never fell out. One day, when Mom was helping me take off my snow pants, one of the sandwiches did fall out. Mom said, "Well, where did that come from?" I wisely said nothing. One time, my dad decided to build a cyclone or storm shelter. This was underground and made of cement. My mom was deathly afraid of thunderstorms and cyclones. She would always get out the palms that had been blessed in church on Palm Sunday and would burn them and pray. She would listen for the sound of a train because I guess that is the way that cyclones sound. We would walk to a neighbor's house if Daddy was not at home, and if we had time, because she was so afraid of a storm, and rightly so, because a lot of storms and cyclones passed through our neighborhood over the years, and many buildings were destroyed and people hurt. I don't remember if we ever used the storm shelter, but I was gone from home by then, so I wouldn't know for sure. My dad had so many good ideas. Daddy would give Mom $10 each week for groceries. Can you imagine? Crazy. A whole week of groceries, $10. Then once a month, she would get $40 for groceries, which would include large purchases like flour, sugar, and lard. My dad handled what money we had to the best of his ability. I remember Daddy buying bonds and keeping them in an empty coffee can in the attic. He usually would pay with cash, even to make big purchases like cars. He really didn't trust banks. My brother Roger said that one time Daddy needed to replace a part that had broken on the plow, and he didn't have any money to buy it. He just sat there and cried. Unfortunately, I never got to know my dad as well as I would have liked to. He was a very proud man. He seemed so important to me that no one could really touch him. And then it says, there's a picture. It says, my dad and our daughter Wendy, they were the only, these are the only pictures that I have of my dad. I guess you didn't take a lot of pictures back then, you know. He was the breadwinner of the family, and gosh, he worked so hard for all of us to see that we had food, clothes, and a warm house to live in. It seemed to me like he was always working. By the time I graduated from high school and left home, I had barely gotten to know him. That's sad. I do know that he had a very hard life, and he was taken from us by a heart attack way too soon, when he was just 66 years old. He retired when he was 62, so he had a few years of leisure, and he really deserved them. Chapter 6. My mom. How do I describe my mom? She was the most intelligent person I have ever met. She had really good common sense. She worked so hard all of her life. I think she was happy most of the time and would usually make the best of things, even though she was sometimes discouraged. Before her life ended at age 89, she had been in a nursing home for a couple of years. She had had a series of strokes before that. I remember she had dementia as well. I didn't know she had strokes though. She never complained that I remember. To me, she was always a little more refined than most of the women that I knew. She would dress appropriately for all occasions. She really was a beauty. She had style and was one classy lady. I admire her so much. This is a picture of her mom. It says glamour shot of mom. It's not glamour shots. I don't know if it's gonna focus. I would use all of these words to describe both my mom and dad. Pioneers, cheerful, courageous, frugal, survivors, persevering, and proud. Mom was a great cook. She made cinnamon rolls. After she made the bread dough and rolled it out, she would spread the lard over the dough. What is that? Because like when I hear lard, I think fat, you know. Next came sugar and cinnamon, but maybe it was like type of butter or something back then. I don't know. Next came sugar and cinnamon, and sometimes we had raisins. Fancy. She rolled it up from one end to the other and sliced off the rolls, put them to rise, and baked them. When these came out of the oven, they were the gooeyest, most wonderful rolls in the world. My father-in-law makes cinnamon rolls, and he's one of those type of people that he doesn't need a recipe. He's just like, throw this in, throw this in, throw this in, and he makes them. They're the greatest cinnamon rolls ever, ever. And he made them this year for Christmas. And when I saw him making them, I was like, yes, I was so happy. And I wanted to take like so many home, but I didn't want to take it away from other people. So I took 4 home. But man, homemade real cinnamon rolls are the greatest. So good. She also baked bread on the average of once every 3 days. One time, when Mom was sick, I had to stay home from school and help Daddy. It was bread making day. My dad was stirring it up, and he would say to me, add more flour, add more flour. We got it done all right, but that must have been the toughest bread we have ever eaten, and certainly not in the least like Mom's. It's funny. Mom sometimes made popovers in a baking powder tin when it was empty. This didn't happen too often though, and we each got a turn to have a popover. Oh, my kids would not be okay with that if I made whatever a popover is. But I could only make one, and then one kid got one, and then the next time the other kid got one. They would not be okay with that. She made pies like a chef on her old kitchen range. She would make raspberry pies, a favorite of mine. When the raspberries were ripe, she made green tomato pie and gooseberry pie. Green tomato pie. I wonder if I can find a recipe for that. That sounds interesting. Like a tomato pie. I've never heard of this. And a gooseberry pie. And a lot of other pies. When Mom made green tomato pie in the square pan, we would all want a corner piece because of more pie crust. I've never heard of a pie being in a square pan, you know. Sometimes we got a bonus, a second piece of pie, if there was extra. She made the best pie crust. I know she always used lard, so I think that must have been the secret. Lard made everything taste good. It must have been butter or something. Like, I don't know what lard is. I'll have to look that up. We used to slice and fry potatoes on the top of the burners. So good. We would spread lard on butter and toast it in the burners. When it was nicely browned, we would sprinkle cinnamon on it. That sounds good. I love cinnamon sugar toast. It's delicious. Daddy would ask Mom to make fried macaroni. Yes. The last time we visited my sister, Marilyn, we tried this and it was pretty good. We cooked the macaroni first and then drained it well, heated olive oil, seasoned, and fried the macaroni. We also put in a few chopped onions. I'd like to have some of that too. In the wintertime, Mom would slice onions and pour vinegar over them for us to eat. No, she was so smart. She knew we needed vitamin C and were not likely to get it in winter because of the lack of citrus fruit. So we needed this for our bone development. That is smart. She would serve the onions in a brown carnival glass dish that she had, and we loved them. We used to eat onion sandwiches too. Just butter the bread, slice onions thin, and put a little salt on, and yum. I don't know. I don't know if that's yum. Okay. Sometimes Mom would make a white layer cake and frost the bottom layer, slice banana rounds and put them on top of the icing, and then put on the top layer and frost it. It was a particular favorite of mine. I mean, that sounds good to me. We actually had donuts. We usually had donuts on hand. We always kept them in a crock to keep them fresh. We enjoyed the donut holes. Mom would use leftover cold mashed potatoes, add a little flour and maybe an egg, shape them into cylinders and fry them in lard. We loved these and called them cross megars or something like that. What? Okay, cold mashed potatoes, add flour and an egg and shape them into cylinders and fry them in lard. What? Okay. I have seen recipes in German potato cakes, and I think she means I've seen recipes of German potato pancakes, and I guess these were about the same. I think her mother was German, so I never learned to cook much at home. The kitchen became so small, and Mom not really having the time to teach us. Mom always had flower beds and flowers in the garden. She liked to pick a bouquet for the table. She would grow hollyhocks, geraniums, gladiolas, zinnias, and dahlias, something among others. Mom surely had a green thumb. And this is a picture of Mom in her garden. Us kids always picked the wildflowers in the woods in early spring. There would be mayflowers. I've never seen a mayflower. Violets, trillium, bloodroot, and daisies. In summer, we would have the beautiful pink wild roses that smelled so good. In the fall, we would pick flowers too, and there would be gentians and goldenrod. I don't know what any of this stuff is. One time, when my mom saw a Christmas cactus down at our school, she asked my sister Marilyn to bring a slip of it so she could plant it. My sister brought the cutting home, and it was frozen solid. She had put it in her lunch pail, not thinking, and should have put it in her clothes instead. Anyway, Mom planted the cutting from the cactus, and it grew. I now have 3 plants, all from the same original cactus plant cutting, and they bloom beautiful every year at Christmas time. Mom's Christmas cactus. I think my Aunt Wendy has a cactus now. Whenever anything wore out, we didn't throw it away. Oh no, Mom would keep the good pieces that were salvageable, and then eventually make a quilt out of it. I love making quilts. I still have one of the quilts that Mom made. It is quite deteriorated, but still mostly in one piece. She used scraps of our winter coats, snow pants, and clothes that were warm. These were heavy quilts. She used to make rugs for the floors. She made many a braided rug that I recall. She would also make rugs out of gunny sacks, what's a gunny sack? I don't know. Used old clothing that she would cut into pieces and pull through the gunny sack with a hook. These sacks were what would be called burlap now. She would make different patterns on the rugs. I wish I had one today. Mom would make us flour sack dresses. We simply could not wait until it was our turn for a flour sack dress. The flour sacks came with pretty little flowers printed on them, and some of them were really cute. There was usually a premium of some kind in cereals or soaps. Oh, I think it's like a surprise that came in cereals and soaps. This might be a small bowl or cup. The box would have a picture of the free gift on the outside, so you could collect a set of cups, glasses, or plates that would all match. What? No way. You get nothing in cereal boxes now. Cracker Jacks had good prizes in the boxes. None of that paper junk you get now. You don't even get paper junk now. Like, waste was not in my mother's vocabulary. This says Mom and me playing Scrabble. Okay. I often think of Mom and how lonely she must have been after Daddy died. She lived 22 years after he passed away. Oh, I cannot imagine that. We tried to visit her once every summer. She came down to see us several times. When I think of her alone in that little house, it makes me so sad. She never did learn how to drive and had to depend on my sister Gail, who lived in Minnesota. Thank God for Gail and all she and her family did for Mom. Then she had a friend, Miss Birch, who called her every day and made sure that she was all right and did not need a ride someplace. Thanks, Mom, for making something out of nothing, for always being there, for taking care of us, and for taking all of the ordinary things of every day and making us feel special. I never got to meet her. I would have liked to. But anyway, that's where I am going to end it this time. I'm sure I'll do a part 3 soon. I really hope that you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.